Hey everyone, welcome to the Dotloop for Beginner training. My name is Sam and I will be guiding you through the next hour. I have a handout pulled up on my screen that you can download over to the right. And anything that happens over to the right will be available during the webinar and up to 30 minutes after the webinar has been completed. So if you want to go ahead and download this now, it's probably not a bad idea. And I'm going to go through this first and then we will hop into Dotloop. So at the top of the handout, you have our support resources. You can check out the support site and search for content there. You can chat with us on the support site, or you can send us an email or call us with any of your technical support questions. If you're looking for more training options, we have the Certified Looper program, which is an in-depth course on how to use Dotloop, and you get a 2-year accreditation of being a certified looper once you complete the course. One of the frequently asked questions about this is it timed? Do I have a certain amount of time to complete it? This is a course that you can just log in whenever you have some extra time and run through it. There's no time limit or anything like that. If you are looking for some continuing education credit and you want to learn about Dotloop, we do have a course hosted through McKissick. If your office or team would like a custom webinar consultation, we can do that. We start out with a discovery call, so your admin or our point of contact will tell us everything we need to know about your Dotloop account and the agents that are using it, the admins that are using it, and then we will come up with a custom training. There will be a time when everybody can attend, and then we'll also give you guys a recording so it can be distributed to any new agents or anyone that couldn't be there. I have on-site training listed because hopefully we'll be able to start visiting everyone again, but at this time it's not available. And then Dotloop Pro is way more than training. It does include some custom training options, but it's also help with loop templates, field calculations, setting up your documents, VIP phone support. So if you or your office is interested in Dotloop Pro, we have a link right here. And if you need clarification on any of these training options or have any questions, our email is right here, training@dotloop.com. So what are we going to go through today? We are going to talk about how to log into Dotloop. How do you get a Dotloop account? All of that basic stuff. So not only you know how you get your Dotloop account, but just an idea of how other agents may be getting into Dotloop as well. Once we're logged in, we will do some basic account navigation. Then we will create a loop. We're going to add templates to that loop, and those are all of the interactive documents that are ready to be signed and auto-filled. Once we've prepared those documents, then we are going to share them over to a client so that you can see the client signing experience from their point of view. Once we have those documents back, that's when we will get more into managing offers. And this is really so we can show you how you can upload PDFs. Because not everything is going to be happening in Dotloop, right? You're going to receive PDFs or paper that needs to get into Dotloop. So we'll talk about that. And then at the end, we will show you how to manage your homepage. So how do we filter our homepage so we only see the loops that we want to see? Next steps, we have an advanced webinar that you can sign up for. And I'll talk about a few things during this webinar that we cover in the advanced just so you get an idea of what's going on there. And then we have our CE course and Certified Looper listed again. Okay, I'm going to move away from the handout and go into Dotloop, so let's log into Dotloop and get started. If we start at the very bottom of how to get into Dotloop, I do want to tell you that I am on a laptop computer and I have Google Chrome open, and that's how I got to Dotloop.com. Dotloop is not something that you're going to download to your computer. It's going to happen when you go to your browser and go to Dotloop.com. So whether you are a Google Chrome person, an Internet Explorer person, a Mac person, a PC person, none of that really matters. We just want to make sure that you're keeping your browser up to date so that you can navigate Dotloop easier. And keeping your browser up to date is good for a lot of other websites too that you're probably going to. So Dotloop.com is available through your browser. But we see some previews here in the bottom right. If you do want to use Dotloop or just some of the features on your phone or tablet, there is a free Dotloop app that you can download. And that'll be available in the Google Play Store or in the App Store. So now that we know how I got here, let's talk about how you get a Dotloop account. There's two main ways to do this. You can just click on Get Started and sign up for a free Dotloop account. Or your office may be using Dotloop at the company level. And what they'll do is they will go into their people section, they will add you as a person, and that will send you an email letting you know that an account has been set up for you. you will have a link in that email that takes you to a page to finish setting up your account and establish a password. So those are the two main ways you can acquire a Dotloop account. Once you have one, the next time you come to dotloop.com, you can click sign in the top right. And to sign in to Dotloop, you will put in your email address and your password. If you ever forget your password, we do have a link right here that will send you a password reset email. It's not something that we want to call support for because our customer support team and anyone else at Dotloop, we don't have access to see your passwords or recover them for you. So this is the only way to do that. Let's go ahead and click sign in. Oh, one more note on forgetting your password. If you do have too many failed login attempts, it will say that you're locked out of your account. In order to unlock your account, you just need to reset your password by clicking here. Okay, now we'll sign in. And this is your Loop's homepage. And a loop is a transaction. It's where all of your documents, your people, your details, your tasks will be in one place. So moving forward, I'm not going to call it a transaction or a cloud-based manila folder. It is a loop here in Dotloop. And you can have a loop for your listings, for your buyers, a referral loop. It's just a place to hold documents, really, if we really want to simplify it. If you're seeing some loops here when you're logging in for the first time and you're like, man, that loop is from like 2 years ago, or that never went anywhere. Why is that here? When another agent or when you share documents through Dotloop, that actually creates a loop view for the other person. Whether they log into Dotloop or not, it's still going to send them an email. So what probably happened is that agent sent some documents to you, you received the email notification, but you didn't log into Dotloop. You just downloaded the documents from the email. That's why they're sitting here. So if you see those older loops, you can just archive that loop, and when you refresh your page, it'll no longer be there. It's there behind the archives, which we will talk about at the end of the webinar. Before we create a loop, we are going to talk about that basic navigation piece and account setup. I am going to come over here to the top right and click on this drop down. Everything that's going on in this drop down, we have support resources listed again, a link to our help center and our phone number, but you guys know you can email and chat with us too. And up at the top of this, you will see your member ID. So when you do call, email, or chat, we are going to ask for that member ID, and that's just how we verify it's your account, and it helps us find your account faster. The next place we will go is we're going to click on My Account. And when you go to your My Account section, that automatically drops you in account settings. And this is where you can fill out all of those details that are the same, whether you are the buyer, the seller, the listing agent, the buying agent. We don't want you to have to type these every single time you have a loop. So instead, you will put in your phone number, your company name here, and this will autofill into the documents. It's pretty self-explanatory, but a few things I want to point out. One is the tagline. This tagline will appear on any outgoing emails from Dotloop. So we will create an email signature with your name, your phone number, your office, and license number, and then you can put whatever you want in the tagline. And I'll make sure I point that out when we become the client. Scrolling all the way down to the bottom of account settings is this address section, and it's technically your home address. You can see I don't have mine filled out, but I do have my country and my time zone filled out. It's important to have your time zone. That will allow your activity log and the date and time stamps on your signatures and initials to be correct. And you can click Save at the bottom, or if you click Enter after any field, it will save. I'm going to move from account settings to profiles right underneath account settings. And in your profile section, you still have some more details to be filled out. Broker license number, your license number, company information here may or may not come from your office, so just make sure that's filled out. And then you have your notification settings. And I know no one likes to receive too many emails, but kind of leave this as is for a while, give it a test drive, and then come back and modify your notification settings. I don't want you to miss something important because you unchecked something you didn't think you needed to see. And we have our email notifications listed here and then our in-product notifications. So there will be a little bell with a number next to it, and that is where you can decide what notifications you want to see with that bell on your home page. Scrolling back up, there is a section called Brokerage and Associations. And this is all on a case-by-case basis, but you can add your association to your Dotloop account, and whatever forms your association has made available to Dotloop, we will automatically load them into your account and then manage them as they're updated. To do this, you will click on Add Association, and then you will search for your association. And I can see my association here with a green check mark over to the right. That means that it's verified, and if I add it to my Dotloop account, it's going to provide those forms, that value that I can use moving forward. Once you select your association and click Add, there's probably going to be one more step, and it could be asking for an NRDS ID, like this association is. If you don't have that handy, we have a link here to recover your NRDS ID. It could ask for an invitation code, or it may just tell you to call Dotloop support, and we may have to reference a list. There's not too many options that'll pop up here, but it is the decision of the association how they want to verify this information. And you will click Continue, but I do not have a real NRDS ID, so I can't click Continue. I do have an association added, and if we scroll up to our Global Template section, that's this icon here, this is where I can see that folder of documents provided by the Cincinnati Area Board of Realtors. That's my example. Now in this webinar, we don't get to spend a lot of time in templates, but if you're interested in creating your own document sets, task lists, learning about the clause manager, that is something we cover in the advanced webinar. I'm going to go back to the home page by clicking on this smiley face here, and that will take us back to our Loops homepage. Now that we have gone to our My Account section, everything is filled out there, we have added our association, we are all set to start creating loops. A lot of Dotloop is personal preference. I don't want you to stress about when to create a loop. If you want to create a loop when you're sitting down with clients, you can do it then. If you know you have a busy week and you want to create some loops ahead of time, you can do that too. And if something doesn't end up panning out, you can always archive that loop. It's not stuck on your home page forever. Whenever you are ready to create a loop, you will click on Add Loop. And the first step in adding a new loop is giving it a name. And you can see we suggest searching by property or MLS number, but it also says if you're unsure of the property address, you can put in your client's name for now, and then you can always change it later. So whatever you name your loop, you can update it once the loop is created. One note here, you may want to check with your admins and say, is there a naming convention you want me to follow? And then you can name your loops that way. I'm just going to start typing a property address. And I see some suggestions here. Using the Google Maps suggestions means that I'm only going to type this address once, and then Dotloop will be able to plug it into my View Details page, which will then autofill my documents. And that's a huge time saver, not having to retype the address a bunch of times. If you are representing buyers and you create a loop to submit an offer for them, when you are naming the loop the property address, take a look and see if you see that listing here as a suggestion. What I'm seeing right now is that Susan, Garrick, Brenda, Norris, and Steven have all logged into Dotloop and created listing loops. And when they created that listing loop, they made it searchable so that if I'm representing buyers and they are interested in 908 2nd Street in Mount Sterling, Kentucky, I can link to Brenda's loop. And I know we're all beginners here, and this is the Dotloop for basics, but by linking to Brenda's loop, everything is still private until shared, but it helps us all avoid the duplicate loop that may happen when you start receiving offers or sending offers. So don't be afraid of these suggestions here. These are to help everyone save time and keep their loops homepage nice and organized. And we go into more detail in the advanced webinar, so I'm sorry to leave you hanging there. But don't be afraid to utilize those suggestions here. But since this is my own listing that I'm starting, I am going to go with the Google Maps suggestion. And we will click continue. Now, step number 2 may or may not be template. This is when your office has created loop templates for you to use, and loop templates are great. Another huge time saver. You select your loop template based on transaction type, and they may also be separated by state depending on where you are, and you get a ready-to-go loop. It has all of your documents, task list, details ready to be filled out instead of you having to start the loop from scratch like we're going to do today. And I'm not going to use a loop template because maybe not everyone attending here has them available. Step number 3, or maybe step number 2, is the opportunity to add a photo, and we can add that now, or we can wait until the loop's created. And then we will finish creating our loop and take a look. Now that we have our loop created, let's take a look at everything that's here. If you did use a loop template, then you would have documents and folders already added and some task lists. But since we created this from scratch, we can see at the top we have our loop name, whether that is the property address or the client's name. We see that at the top. We have a place to add documents, and we can add interactive documents from our templates. We can browse our computer for PDFs, and we can forward in emails that have PDFs attached, and Dotloop will upload the PDFs. Underneath documents, you may or may not see service providers, but they are here ready to help you or your clients out with any questions. Service providers can be added by your brokerage, or you can add your own from the Global People section. We have a place to add people specifically to this loop, and our tasks are at the bottom. Again, Dotloop is a lot of choose your own adventure or personal preference, so it's up to you when you want to add tasks or documents or details, but since we're already here, I'm going to go ahead and add our task list. I can click on Add Tasks over here to the left, and that will add a task list that I can start adding tasks to. And now that I have some tasks typed out, I can assign due dates to these tasks, and Dotloop will email me the day before the task is due. If I really like this task list, I can click the 3 dots to the right of the name of the task list and say Create Template. The next time I have a listing loop, then I can just load this template in instead of typing it out. So I would click here next time. So now that we've done something at the bottom, we've added those tasks, let's start scrolling back up and talking about some other things. This people section above your task section is my favorite place to manage people in the loop. You will be able to manage people from a document, the autofill window, the view details page, the share window, but this is the only place that you can add, edit, and remove a person. Everywhere else, you're only going to have the option to add or edit. When you create the loop, you are automatically added. You don't need to add yourself. You already did all of that by adding in information in your My Account section. Now we just need to come over to the right and give ourselves the role that we will have in this loop. So I'll give myself the role of listing agent. Then we are going to add our people to the loop. I'll click on Add Person and type in my client's name or whoever it is that I'm adding. I can add them at any point in time in the transaction, but right now we'll start off with sellers. And I'm going to type in my seller's name and give him the role of seller. I am going to add my client's email so that they can e-sign during this webinar, but let's just say your client doesn't have an email address or they're not interested in e-signing, or maybe you're preparing this loop and you actually haven't sat down with them yet and gathered an email. You can add a person with just a name and a role, and Dotloop can still auto-fill the documents. So because you said Johnny is a seller, that will put Johnny's name into every other place that needs the seller name. And then, of course, you could fill out all of these other details about your client. But since this is a training, I'm just going to add in his email address. Now, there's 2 checkboxes here in this Add Person window. This one, Add to My Team, take that literally like you are adding someone to your real estate team. I would only want to check this box if I was co-listing this property with Johnny Rose. So we don't want to add our clients to the team, the agent on the other side of the deal, the service providers that we add to the loop. We would only want to add another agent on the same side of the deal to our team. Once we add someone to a team, that will send them a team invitation, and when they accept that, they are officially on the team and cannot be removed from the team. And just to take this, clarify it even further, or explain even further, when you add someone to your team, they can see the loop just like you can. They can share documents, modify them, add or remove people. They have all the power that you have as the loop creator. And in the bottom left, you have the option to send an intro email. I do want to send one so you can see what it looks like from the recipient's point of view, but it's definitely not necessary to send an intro email for every single person that you add. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Now let's click Add Person. And if I had a seller number 2, I would click on Add Person again, and I would add that second seller. Dotloop does require each signer to have their own email address. We verify a person's identity by them going into their password-protected email inbox to see the notification that they need to sign documents. So unfortunately, you cannot add 2 people with the same email address. They each have to have their own email address to sign documents. And I know with clients that's not always the case. Sometimes they only have one, they share an email address. But the example I'm always given is, let's say your clients are in the middle of a divorce. We don't want one party selling the house out from underneath the other party because they can sign as both people from one email address. And I know that's worst case scenario, but I always keep that in the back of my mind as to why each signer needs their own email address. Above our people, we have those service providers. If we do need help with home inspection, we can click on home inspection here and add Jimmy to the loop to help us out with that. But as they stand right now, before I click and add anyone, they don't know that I'm listing a property with this Johnny person. They just know that they are featured in a loop. And now we're back up at the top of our loop. There are 2 different ways we can go here, and whichever way you decide to go, you're going to end up in the same place. The first route you can take is go to the View Details page. And you can do this as soon as you create your loop, after you add your task list. The View Details page is the control center of the loop, or the cover sheet of the loop. And I'm just going to talk while I scroll through here. You can see all of the different fields that you can possibly add or fill in. And filling in the fields here will autofill them in documents. And then it's also just here so you can refer back to this page for any questions. You can add and remove information, and there will be a save button at the top and at the bottom. If we make our way back up, we can see that that property address section was already filled out, and that's because I used the Google Maps suggestion. But since I made it up, it may not be a real property address. It looks like I need to fix up the street number here. So you just click into a field and type into it. You can certainly tab through to get to the next field. Here's another people section. We can add a person and edit them here, but we cannot remove them here. And then at the top, we can upload a photo of this listing. You can upload any JPEG into the loop. And then this is also where you can rename the loop. In the View Details page, when you click on the loop name, it becomes editable. So I can add in my client's last name at the beginning, and I can add in the zip code at the end. And just click Enter to save. So maybe you just watched all that and you're like, yes, I am a View Details person. That's the way I want to run my loop. Or you're like, okay, Sam, I'm not completely sold. Let's see what the other option is. The other option is to just start adding interactive documents. I can go and click on templates, and I can see folders that I've added, folders provided by my office, by my association, and I can grab the documents I need. If you select a larger folder like a master folder from your office or from your association, please don't forget that there's a search bar at the top and you can search for those documents that you need by keyword. And I can grab those documents by checking them off. And once I've checked off the documents I need to get started for the entire transaction, I can click copy. Now that I have documents in here, those 3 options on how to add documents disappeared. If I need to add more, I can click Add Document to the right of the folder, and I see those options again. We've seen these 3 dots everywhere. They're next to tasks, they're next to people, and they're also here within our documents. If I click on the 3 dots to the right of a document, I have all of these options to open the document, rename it, download it, print it. I can also just click on the document name to open it. But if I want to work with more than one document at a time, I can use the check boxes to the left, and that activates my batch features. And I have a lot of the same options I had in that dropdown, but now I can work with more than one document at a time. So I'm going to check off those 2 documents and then click Open. And the first time you open up one interactive document or multiple interactive documents, you will see this autofill window. And you can use the autofill window instead of going to the View Details page. The autofill window is just like the View Details page, but it's only asking for details that are in the document, not every possible detail in the transaction. And whatever you fill out or add here will backfill to the View Details page, and it's also going to autofill to your document. So ideally, the more and more documents you're opening, hopefully the less and less you're adding to this autofill window. Starting at the top, it already knows who our seller is. It knows that I'm the listing agent, but here is another opportunity to add a person to the loop or give someone a different role. Our property address is already filled out, whether we did that in View Details or we used a Google Maps suggestion to name our loop. And then we can come through and fill in details that will autofill the document. We'll just fill some of these in here. I like to put in what it actually is just so you can see the way it autofills. And once we're good to go, we will click on autofill. And it will say 2 roles have been assigned and 24 fields have been autofilled. When it says 2 roles have been assigned, that means mine and my client's fields have been assigned. So anything that was assigned to seller is assigned to my client, and anything assigned to listing agent is now assigned to me. Then when it says 24 fields have been autofilled, that's everything that we see in yellow. All of that information came from the View Details page or from the autofill window. Anything that didn't autofill, we can click into the text box and start typing that information. We can also check some boxes. And we have some radio buttons down here too. So you can go through and fill out your document. You can also tab through these fields just like we tabbed through the View Details page. The reason I only add one seller when I'm doing a webinar is so I can point out grouping. When you only have one seller or one buyer, you will not need to assign this second field to no one. Because these fields are grouped together, our client will only see that one field. They won't be prompted to initial both. And we'll see that when we become the client. Now I want to scroll down to the last page where we can talk about some just some document editing. This isn't a PDF. Depending on who provided the form, your brokerage, your association, you may or may not be able to add additional fields. The most you'll be able to add to an interactive document would be signatures, initials, and strike-throughs. They may have some items grayed out here, like they don't want you to add additional signatures, so you may see a different drop-down than what I see here. On a PDF, when you click the Add drop-down, it will have much more that you can add. text boxes, date fields, check boxes, but we're a little bit limited here on this interactive document. Whether it's a PDF or an interactive document like we have right now, when you do add your own fields, they will follow your cursor around until you click and place where you want them to go, but you can still move them around a bit. You will use the bottom right-hand corner to resize that field, and then it's going to be assigned to anyone by default. So I can see in the top left, assigned to anyone. I don't want to leave it assigned to anyone. I want to directly assign it to whoever needs to sign there. And the same goes for initials. I will click Add Initials. That will follow my cursor around until I click in place, resize, and then I can come up here to the top left and directly assign that field. Strike-throughs act a little different because we don't need to be assigning strike-throughs to anyone. We click Add Strike-through and we click and place that field, and then we can resize from the right-hand side and drag that field out to where we need it to go. If you need to delete a field that you placed on the document, click on the field and there will be an X on your toolbar to remove it. Now, any existing fields on the document you cannot delete. If we scroll up, there's a place here where there's multiple initials. If you know that your client does not need to initial here, we don't have the option to remove these fields like we do with the ones that we placed, but you can assign these fields to no one, and they will not appear as an option for your client to sign or initial. So assigning to no one is basically like removing it. And any fields that you need to sign or initial, you can just open up the document and click Sign Now. You do not need to share documents to yourself and open them up in your email. That's only for when you're sharing outside of the loop to other people. Now that we have some documents filled out, I'm going to go to the top right and click Save. Dotloop does not have an autosave. It is up to you to come up to the top and decide when you want to save those documents. This is really important when you are using shared Wi-Fi, or maybe you have like 30 free minutes of Wi-Fi at Panera. Whatever the case is, I don't want you to lose your internet connection and then lose all of the work that you did on this document. So come up and click Save every once in a while. Now that I have everything filled out, I'm all set to share these documents over to my client so that they can initial and sign. When I click on Share, Dotloop is going to try to help me out here. It's assuming that because my client has 11 fields assigned to them, that they should be able to sign the document. If you need to change any of this, you can always uncheck that person if you're not ready to share to them right now, and you can change the permission that you're sharing with. There are 3 other permissions, so we have 4 total, and I want to talk about these middle 2 first. Can sign and can fill and sign are great for your clients because you are sharing documents, and on those documents there are a specific number of tasks that need to be completed, those signature or initial fields, or even a text field that needs to be filled out. Once they have completed all of those tasks, they will click on Finish Signing, and it will automatically distribute the document to you and to your client. So everybody has a copy of what was just signed. Can Fill and Sign was created with disclosures in mind. It will put a blanket permission on the document, allowing the recipient to fill anywhere they need to, and then sign and initial whatever is assigned to them. Then we have our bookends here. The lowest permission is View Only, and you can see in the description that it's ideal for third-party service providers. View Only allows that recipient to view, download, or print, and if they do any one of those things, it's going to be tracked in the document history. They can also download or print with any other permission. So moving from View Only, the lowest permission, to Can Edit in Private, the highest permission, Can Edit in Private is reserved for agent-to-agent sharing. We don't want to share to our clients with Can Edit in Private or really anyone else. And the idea with Can Edit in Private is that if I am sharing an offer to a listing agent, I can share with Can Edit in Private, and if that recipient, that other listing agent, is a Dotloop user, then they're able to share that document onto their own clients and not download, print, and create a duplicate. Once they've collected their client signatures, then they can share it right back to me and it will update the document within my loop, that offer document. If I share to an agent with Can-Edit in private and they are not a Dotloop user, then they can just download or print it and go on like they normally would with that document. When they do send it back to me as a PDF or scan it back to me, then I would need to re-upload it into the loop and probably archive the original so I don't have two documents sitting in my loop. Let's stick with CanSign. That's perfect for what we need on this document. We can enter in a custom message and also attach a PDF when we're sharing. And this reminds me of the send intro email. You don't need to attach a PDF every single time, but it definitely has a time and place. So we'll talk about that when we become the client. And now we can share these documents. And when we go back to the loop and we see all of these documents, they say waiting on others. And I can hover over that waiting on others and see an update that we're still waiting on Johnny to sign, or Johnny viewed, still waiting on Johnny to sign. Now I'm going to switch from being the agent to being the client. So let's go over to our client's email and see what kind of emails they have so far. The first email that we sent is the intro email. And all it says is Sam wants to collaborate on a transaction. You would probably include a much more helpful custom message. But for a client, the only thing they can click on is get started or the property address, the loop name, and that would also take them to the loop. And I don't think that they would know what to do when they get here. Maybe they wouldn't see documents because you haven't shared them yet. There's a lot to click on. So I don't think an intro email is necessary when you're adding clients to the loop, but a great time to use it is when you're adding another agent to the loop. You can say, hey, buyer's agent, or hey, listing agent, I created this loop already, so if you want to share documents to me, you can share them here instead of creating your own loop. And that way you don't end up with duplicate loops. So I didn't want you to think that when you check that send intro email box that it's providing them with all sorts of information and links. It's really just going to take them to their own view of the loop. The email that they receive to sign documents is much more helpful. It's actually telling them what to do, how to complete the task. Here is where your custom message appears. This is the link we want them to click on to get to the interactive documents. This section right here is built from your My Account section, your name, your brokerage, your license number, and your phone number. And then we have our tagline here in bold. And since I checked the box when I was sharing to attach PDFs, those PDFs are here at the bottom. The reason it's not necessary to check the attach PDF field, attaching a PDF when you're sharing is always a nice gesture, especially if you're sharing to another agent. You know, everybody knows what to do with the PDF, but maybe they don't want to click on the link in the email. So it's not a bad idea to attach a PDF, but it can be a little confusing for clients. They may open up the PDF and be waiting on some e-signature feature to happen when it's not going to happen with the PDF. We need them to actually click on this link here. So maybe for clients, if they're not requesting a PDF, you can just give them one route to the document and not check the box to attach a PDF. When your client clicks on View All Documents, it will take them to a screen that looks like this, where they can click on the three dots to download or print before they sign. They can scroll through the documents, and then when they're ready, they can click on Start Signing. That will take them to their first signature or initial field, where if they click on the field, we ask them to adopt their signature. They can go with this typed version here, or they can draw their signature. If they don't like the way they've drawn it, they can clear it out, or they can go back to type. Once they click Adopt and Sign, they can just click to place their signatures and initials in each spot, and it's automatically date and time stamping. And we can see that grouping at work. Our client doesn't even see that second seller field because we don't need them to sign both fields. And then coming up on that field that we assigned to no one, They're not prompted to sign there. They don't even see it as an option. And once they complete all of the fields, they need to click on Finish Signing in the top right. And before we go through any of this, I want to show you that your client has already received emails with copies of what they just signed. So they have a copy of the addendum and the contract. From your point of view, you have already received an email or a push notification on your phone letting you know that the documents have been signed. I show you this first because everything's done. You see the signed documents, your clients have the signed documents. Your clients can exit out at this point. Or they can reach out to some service providers or sign up for a free Dotloop account. If they sign up for a free Dotloop account, then they are able to log into their own Dotloop account. They can download the app to their phone or tablet and log in there and see all of the documents that you've shared to them. With a free Dotloop account, they can even add their own documents if they want to. But if they don't sign up for a Dotloop account, it's also not a big deal. They can keep receiving emails from you to keep signing documents. They don't have to have a Dotloop account to do that. And now we will switch back over to being the agent. And we're not going to go through filling out and signing the rest of these documents. Let's just say that all of the documents in this folder are completed. They have been filled out and they have been signed. If your office is using Dotloop for compliance, this would be the time that you go ahead and submit for review. Your admins are not receiving notifications every single time you add a document, modify it, collect signatures, have a document shared to you. That would just be too many notifications to manage. So the one way to get their attention is to click on Submit for Review. Since every transaction timeline is different, it's up to you to say when you are submitting for review. You're not going to get a pop-up 10 days after the loop has been created or 5 days after all of the documents are signed. Once everything is ready to go, you need to click on Submit for Review, and then you will submit for review by folder. And you can select more than one folder at a time. I only have one folder in this loop, so that's the only one that's selected. And once you've checked off your folder, then you will select a type. And this is customized by office, but typically it's by transaction type. So I will select Listing Review, and then we will click Submit. Looking at my documents, to me, it's not really obvious that I just submitted for review. So I made up a poem, and it goes like this. The right is for your clients, and the left is for compliance. So everything over to the right of your documents has to do with what's happening outside of the loop or outside of your office. You're sharing to those service providers, those clients, agents. Maybe the agent is in your office, but you get the point. Then everything over to the left has to do with submitting for review. And I can see my documents were submitted. These say optional because I actually didn't complete them, so it's not like they need to be reviewed. And then I can see the review stage on my folder has changed to Listing Documents Need Review. This is also customized by your office, but I'm sure it's going to say something like this. So now the ball is in your admin's court. They will review these documents, and then when they change the review stage on the folder, it's probably going to change to something like approved or returned. Whatever it has changed to, you will receive an email letting you know. And if you do have something that's returned, it will be noted here to the left. So let's say my addendum has been approved, but my contract has been returned. And I see my message block is over here to the right, and it is red, letting me know I have a message. So when an admin returns your file, they will let you know, hey, I need your signature on the last page. All we have to do to correct that mistake is open up this document, and we will sign the last page. So we go down to the last page. Oops, we did forget to sign it, so I'm going to go ahead and sign now. And click Save. When I started talking about Submit for Review, I did say that your admins don't receive notifications when you sign documents, when you collect signatures. Now that you've corrected that mistake, you've filled in that last signature, you need to submit for review again. And you submit the same folder with the same type. You don't even have to include a helpful note here because from your admin's point of view, Dotloop is not going to ask them to review documents that they've already approved. So they know that they only have to review that contract, and they can even refer back to that note to see why it was returned. So that is the submit for review process. You will be notified via email every step of the way. The last piece of submit for review that I want to talk about is, and it's kind of maybe a far out scenario, but just in case you find yourself in this situation, if you have a folder here and it is approved, and then you add a document like a price change addendum or any document that you think your admin should be aware of, you can submit an approved folder. And that's a perfect time to use this helpful note section and let them know why you're submitting an approved folder. And in order to take care of yourself and to make sure that a check is not sitting on someone's desk for 2 extra weeks, submit for review a little bit more than you think you have to. Keep everyone in the loop, pun intended. Okay, so we have created a listing loop. We added documents, people, we shared those documents and collected signatures. Once we had our documents back, we submitted for review so our admins could review this file. Everyone submits for review at a different time, so maybe you don't submit until you have an accepted offer. Maybe you have to submit your listing documents so it's considered an active listing. But the next thing we're going to do is talk about managing the inside of your loop. And to keep yourself nice and organized, you can click on the 3 dots to the right of a folder and you can rename it. This is my listing folder. Click enter to save. Now if I start receiving offers, I can add a folder for each offer that I receive. So I click on add folder, I name that folder, and I click enter to save. But this offer that I received, it was sent to me via email or I had to scan it into my computer, and it's not going to come from templates. I'm going to browse my computer for this PDF. And I click right here, it shows me all the files on my computer, and I can search for the document that I need and upload it into my loop. This PDF that I'm about to open is worst case scenario, so hopefully you don't have to do all of this every single time you upload a PDF, but I want you to see everything that you can do to fix it up within Dotloop. Let's open this messy PDF. Taking inventory of everything that's wrong with this, we have a page that's upside down, and it's considered like a packet. We have a lead paint disclosure, we have a contract, and we also have a residential property disclosure. So I'm going to scroll back up to the top. I'm not going to keep scrolling back and forth. I know that can be a little crazy. But up here at the top, underneath File, I can rotate this document. I can rotate the entire document or just a page. And I will just click that twice to get us right side up. Now above Rotate is the option to split this document. And when I was scrolling through, I found I had 3 different documents, 2 disclosures and a contract. So I'm going to change this 2 to a 3. Then I'm going to designate my page numbers. My lead paint disclosure was only 1 page. My contract was 2 pages. And my disclosures kept the rest of the document. Now I can give those documents names. And we can click Split Document. And if we back out of this document, we have 3 separate documents, and the original was archived. Now that I have an archived document, I have the option to show archived. And if I need to bring this back, I can click on the 3 dots and unarchive. Now that we have rotated, we have split these documents, we can add fields to them. So make sure that you are splitting and rotating before you try to add a signature, a text field, or initial field. And if we open up this contract, we can click on the Add drop-down, and add some fields here. So I'm going to add a strike through and a text box, type in that new information, and then add an initial field next to that so my client can acknowledge the changes. Do not leave that field assigned to anyone. Make sure you directly assign it to who you need to sign there, and now we can save and share this to our client. That was some very basic PDF editing, but I want to let you in on an advanced feature. And we have these things called hotkeys, and if you go to the support site and search for hotkeys, we have a whole article dedicated to them. And what I'm about to show you is just barely going to scratch the surface on the amount of hotkeys that are available. But here's the way I like to use hotkeys. We are going to add some initials. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to use this document. I want to show you it on a different document, more of a real life example. Let's open up this disclosure. Okay, we have a disclosure that we downloaded from the MLS, then we uploaded into our loop, and now we need our buyers to initial on every single page. I am going to create the initials once. That means that I'm going to click and place them, resize them, and then assign them to the person I need to initial there. Do the same thing for initial number 2. And that's a lot of work, especially if you have more than one page you need to add these fields to. I'm now going to copy these fields and then paste them on the next pages. If I want to copy more than one field at a time, I can draw a box over these fields, and they're both selected, or I can hold down Shift and click on both of them. And you can also just copy and paste one field if you need to, but I'm going to show you how to do 2. Now on the bottom right, it shows me if I want to copy these fields, I need to use Command-Shift-C all at the same time on my keyboard. That's if you're on a Mac. If you're on a PC, the bottom right-hand corner will tell you Control-Shift-C. So watch the bottom right, because once I say I want to copy by hitting all 3 keys at once, Dotloop says, okay, here's how you paste. And I can go down to the next place I need those initials, use my paste hotkey, Command-Shift-V, and there are my fields. I just have to click and place them. But they're already resized and they're already assigned. And you're like, okay, Sam, cool. You do this every day for a living. And that's true. So don't just watch me do it and then try to go do it the next time you have a loop. Create a test loop, add a PDF to it, and try out these hotkeys. Now, like I said, there are a ton of hotkeys, but I think these are the most helpful, especially when you're working with PDFs that you need to send over to your clients. And now I can save and share this over to them to initial each page. Now I'm going to set the scene for a different storyline here. And here's the storyline. We have all of our documents here in Dotloop and we auto-filled them, but our client did not want to e-sign, or it just wasn't an option. So we printed out those documents, our client signed pen to paper, we uploaded those documents back into the loop. Maybe we needed to do a little splitting, a little rotating, but now I have 2 lead disclosures. I have 2 contracts and 2 disclosures, and it looks a little messy. What I'm going to do is I am going to drag my completely filled out and signed lead disclosure over my incomplete lead disclosure, the one that we just auto-filled and then printed out. And it's going to say replace with, and we are about to replace the incomplete document. And I will say yes. But the best part is that it takes the name of the template, so the full name that your admin wants to see and that you don't want to type out when you're renaming your documents. Now let's drag our completed disclosure on top of our incomplete one and replace it. And we will do the same thing with our contract. And that is so much faster than archiving all of the incomplete ones and then renaming the completed ones. Now if we click Show Archived, all of our incomplete versions were archived here. And you only need to drag and replace when you have multiple versions of a document within the loop. You can replace the incomplete or the older version with the new one and still keep the correct name. All right, last thing of the webinar. Let's go back out to our Loops homepage. And let's talk about filtering and setting your page up so it looks how you want it to look. Starting all the way over to the right, you can set different loop views. Right now we're in grid view, but we also have list view and we have compact view. So it depends on how many loops you want to see on your homepage and how much detail you want to see, but maybe give each one of them a test drive and figure out which one you like best. Next to that, we have the option to sort. I personally sort by last updated, but you can see all of the different criteria you can sort by. You can also change the order as well. If you want to see some older loops at the top, if you want to flip back to the newer loops at the top, you can change the order. And then we have filters. As an agent filtering their homepage, start small. Less is more. Let's start with hide archived and see if that gets us where we need to go. But if it doesn't, then the next place I would go is loop status. And I would check off all of the statuses that show us like an in progress loop. I don't want to see anything that's withdrawn or terminated, leased, or done. So I'm going to check off all of those that show like an active in progress. And I'm also going to check off no status. The reason I recommend checking off no status is just in case you forget to give your loop a status, we still want it to appear on your home page so you don't have to go searching for it. And if an agent ever shares a document to you from a loop that doesn't have a status, we also want that to appear on your home page. I'm going to check those off and then click apply. And that doesn't leave me with a lot. So it's hidden my archive loops and it's hidden all of my sold or terminated loops. One more thing with filters, if you like this filter selection, you can save it and give it a name. So I'm just going to call it My Loops. And then you will click create and apply. This is really nice because the next time you go to filter, you can clear your filters. And instead of rechecking everything off, you can just grab My Loops. And the last part of the home page is the search bar. You do not have to clear your filters to search for loops. If you go to search for a loop, it will show you what you're seeing with your filters on, but you can also search beyond your filters. And I didn't even search a loop name. I searched my client's name and it showed me that loop that my client is in. So you can search by MLS number, property address, client name, MLS number, and see those results here. So I hope this webinar gave you everything you need to start using Dotloop to create your first real transaction or your first loop, or create a test loop and get going there with some PDFs and interactive documents. Please don't hesitate to reach out to our support team or check out the support site with any questions. That's here in this drop down. Our phone number, a link to the support center, and your member ID is here. So if you do have any questions, make sure you have that handy so we can find your account. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day and happy looping.